Okay, welcome back to the channel. This is Jon Denton, and this time I'm going to be talking about Sony's PlayStation E3 2017 briefing, conference, whatever these things are called. And this time it is my pleasure to be joined by the one and only Andi Hamilton of Midnight Resistance and many other things.
Hello there.
So, Andi, I just wanted to get your overall impressions of the show before we go game by game. Now, just before you do that, I just want to say there was some audio issues with the conference when I watched it this morning. I didn't watch it live, so I've seen some of this out of order, so I'm going to be running through these games in a different order to how they appeared in the show, and adding a couple in as well, but it's just, there was some sort of, the first 20 minutes was all, it's like the stream audio wasn't
it
working.
Was, it was. That was across all channels as well, apparently. It was just a complete screw-up. Which is interesting, because I've got a slightly different experience of this conference to a lot of people. Is obviously I was not there, but I did watch it in a crowded bar full of drunk people. And obviously the audio issues were a bit of a problem at that point. But my overall opinion on the Sony conference, without giving my hand away too soon, it did show signs that over the last few years, I think they've maybe shown too much. And it kind of shows a bit of a lull in releases. The fact that it was an hour shorter than what they normally go, and a lot of the stuff that they've shown off in the last few years, like the big marquee names, your Shenmues, your Final Fantasies, even like Last of Us 2, which they straight up said when they showed it, don't expect to see this game for a long time. That. They didn't have anything like that, and I think maybe there was an expectation that we shouldn't have had. But also, it sort of shows that maybe these last few years that, like, by showing these massive games, they'd created this kind of like massive buzz around the Sony conference. It's like when you go to Reading and you've got all these great bands during the day, but then you've got Metallica at the end. Sony were like the headliner. That just seems to be this like reputation they've got, and I don't know. I just felt that like maybe this was the year they had to show some stuff that was actually coming out, and it might have backfired a bit.
Slightly strange structure as well, I thought. I know we do just want games, and less waffle, but it was. I mean, I almost felt sorry for the people that had stuffed themselves into the theatre, because apart from the fact they could hear the first 20 minutes, probably. There was no real reason to be there. I mean, you're not seeing anybody talk. I know then you obviously go out of the theatre and you can sort of play and interview people, etc. But it was just a barrage of trailers with very little context. And I like a conference that has a little bit of sort of demo time as well as trailers. And I mean, I liked it, the Ubisoft conference, for example, when you got the chance to hear from some of the creators as well, and they did a good job of not dwelling too long on any one creator or waffling too much. But this just felt like I was basically on YouTube just clicking one through, one video after another, which is actually how I watched most of the trailers with the audio that doesn't work.
I mean,
sorry, go on.
It's not, you'd expect, if you're going to do a conference like this, then I don't know, you kind of have to go all out a bit. Like, if you've got that stage, use it. Don't just stick up a bunch of trailers, because I mean, that's what Nintendo are doing, and notice how they're not there. That's it just seemed like exactly what you said. It was just a bunch of videos. They had a few things on stage for the live crowd, but again, it wasn't really the same as having the actual devs come up and explain it. And I think that was missed, for sure. Yeah,
I do. It sort of smacked... Arrogance isn't the right word, because I don't think it really came off as arrogant, but just a little bit like they're quite comfortable at the moment, but at the same time, like you said, they don't really have anything to blow people's socks off with right now. And they can't talk up the PS4 Pro too much, because them next door do have a more powerful box, even if it's not necessarily going to sell as well. So they probably felt like, okay, let's just show them all this stuff, let's get out of here and move on, and we can come again in 6 months at PlayStation Experience or whatever. Okay, so I mean, the show kicked off with, I believe, Uncharted Lost Legacy, right? So this, to me, I mean, I kind of bounced off Uncharted 4 halfway through.
Hard.
And I'm keen to jump back on since I've got the Pro and the 4K TV, just to finish it off, because I do feel like it's a little bit incomplete it's literally incomplete, but also, I just kind of want to see what happens at the end of the story. But I can't say I'm hugely excited about the thought of doing that again. I can't face the idea of jumping and then someone catching my hand, or doing some laborious climbing, or some sort of mediocre shooting. As much as I love the production values and the set pieces when they're so exciting, those games have sort of quickly become quite old, as beautiful as they are, and there wasn't anything here. Even though the cutscenes were brilliantly acted and it seems incredibly stylish and lavish, there was nothing here in the trailer that really showed me that there was going to be anything different.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that. I'm not the biggest Uncharted fan anyway. I mean, I think that 3 was weak. 1 feels like a different game. So for my money, the only one they've really nailed out the park was 2, and it's because it was full of great ideas. We hadn't seen a lot of it before. It looked amazing at its time, and still looks really good in the remake, but 4, much like you, I ended up finishing it, but it felt like a chore towards the end. However, despite agreeing with everything that you've just said, for the sake of playing devil's advocate, I do feel that if this is a bite-sized version of Uncharted 4, like a very, nowhere near the length, because its length was definitely one of the things that killed it for me. There was a lot of, bits where things were needlessly dragged out. If this is like a real bite-sized, snappy bit of Uncharted, it could be good. Like if it's just a really focused set pieces and interesting ways they use the shooting, it could be really cool. Could be. If it's another Uncharted game, I'm out, I think.
Is it coming out? Is it full price?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Because I had heard it was going to be shorter.
If it is, then amazing. If the right price and shorter, snappier, I think it could actually be a winner.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for games that are just play out the length that they should be, whether it's 5 hours or 500. Like games that know what they are and don't feel the need to pad themselves out. So yeah, I'll go along with that. Games that were perhaps not the best in terms of how long they should be. Horizon Zero Dawn. We saw some DLC, the sort of expansion that's going to be coming to that. Now that is a game that I admire. I never saw it under 4K HDR. I've only ever seen it since I've had the Pro, and it is a stunning looking game. But for me, really did suffer from coming out the same time, pretty much the same time as Breath of the Wild, and how sort of uninteractive the world actually felt, and how familiar so much of it was. As someone who's played Far Cry, so I won't be checking out this expansion. I wouldn't have thought, unless for some miracle I go back to the first game, which I probably did about a third of. Realistically,
I mean, I hope you weren't hoping someone was going to come on here with some radically different opinions, but because
no, I think I knew that you felt the similar way.
I mean. Again, put a positive spin on things. The game I reviewed immediately after Horizon was Ghost Recon Wildlands. So, although I feel that the open world thing is kind of looking a bit weak when compared to Breath of the Wild, there is something that can be said about the quality that Horizon brought to the table.
Oh, no doubt.
And I mean, this expansion pack certainly looks the part. I guess. This is something that's probably going to come back to you a few times during this conference, but if you liked what you've already played, like, you're going to enjoy this. Sony are very clearly comfortable where they are and are happy to put out experiences that you've already experienced and know are fun. The safe bets, basically. A decent sized DLC expansion pack for Horizon Zero Dawn is about as safe a bet as you can make right now.
No doubt. And it's not a game that I can't understand why people love it. It makes total sense.
Totally.
Who love it. Like, mechanically, it's very, very sound. It looks incredible. Story-wise, I can see how people get into that. Yeah, maybe that was damning with faint praise there. But you're exactly right. Safe bet. Now, next on my list is a game that I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on. Okay. It's a series I know fuck all about, quite frankly, despite wanting to know more about, and that's Monster Hunter World. Okay,
this wasn't next in the conference running order.
Quite frankly.
But that's kind of good, because we'll get onto the game that came after Horizon in a minute, I'm sure. But by this point in the conference, I was a little bit like, man, I think Sony are 0-3 for my tastes right now.
Right.
And then obviously Monster Hunter comes out swinging. It was it wasn't a great trailer. There's been a bit of chatter afterwards that it's clearly aimed at the Western market, which I think might be a smart move, but that's not why Monster Hunter already has this like really hardcore cult following.
Yeah.
However, it definitely looks like it's going to scratch that Monster Hunter itch, and as as much as I love Monster Hunter, it's undeniably an awkward experience, and things like drop in, drop out co-op, the fact that it's on a console people play on, it looks really nice. I think that this is going to be like really good. I think this definitely looks like a Monster Hunter game that I think more people are going to play than whatever is the next sort of mainline Monster Hunter game.
Mm-hmm. So
it had enough references to the it had enough references to the source material, like the running animation and the Rathalos that was there, and the weapons. Apparently they've confirmed that all the weapons are in as well. So this was the first one where I was like, okay, this is a big deal. I'm into this.
So where did this come in? Was this the fourth game?
It was the fourth game, yes.
Okay, and just to stay on Monster Hunter for a second, we've obviously got XX coming out in Japan shortly on Switch. I've been keen to jump into the series for a while. I almost picked up Generations on 3DS, but I knew realistically I wasn't using my 3DS. I don't think I'd even turned it on for about a year.
Even I had that problem. Had that problem. And, I'm Johnny Monster Hunter, so...
Yeah. So, I'm keen to... I can see me having more time for a game like this on Switch, just through the portability and playing on trains, etc.
Yeah.
But perhaps World might be the one that makes more sense for me to jump into as a newbie. Who knows?
Yeah, I think that's the way they're aiming it. I think they're going to take out a lot of the weird awkwardness that Monster Hunter has. I mean, admittedly, it's the awkwardness that is really interesting. Like having a setup before a hunt and like having to literally do missions where all that you do is pick things up. Because you're planning for like a great big assault on some gigantic beast later on down the line. It looks like it's a bit more just monsters. But I think that if people play this and kind of see what the core Monster Hunter is, the actual hunting, they might want a slightly more fleshed out experience, especially if they've got a Switch, because it's a potentially perfect fit for the console. So. I'm into it. I mean, I know that a load of people I know who are going to play it, and I think it's going to have like probably a bigger player base than the last few have had, and that's good because Monster Hunter is a game you need to play with people.
Awesome. Yeah, so it might be good to catch up with you again come XX, whether we find out that's getting a proper Western release or English localization.
Yeah, well, everyone thought that Monster Hunter World, the name of this game, was going to be the Western name for XX, because they always change it. Like Monster Hunter X was Monster Hunter Generations, but no, we are now in the realms of the unknown.
Talking of unknown, I don't know what came next or backwards or forwards in this conference. So the next game I've got written on my list is Gran Turismo Sport.
Okay, that wasn't in it at all. That's cool.
It wasn't even in the conference.
No, it was that Sony had a pre-conference, which no one watched, that apparently announced and showed just as many games that were in the conference.
I think I have a few of them in this list.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, have you seen the trailer to this? I mean, you can imagine what it is. It looked exactly like Forza 7 or Project Cars 2. Just very, very, very realistic cars driving around, looking very nice. I don't care.
I've got a PlayStation VR. I'm going to pick it up. Simple as that.
Of course, it's in VR.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. They've said it's clear. It's very specifically a separate mode, specific cars and specific tracks, but. Every driving game I've played in VR so far has been like really good and genuinely benefited from the platform. And I think that Dirt Rally seemed like it was added on a bit later, and so did Drive Club. Gran Turismo's been developed with that in mind, like from the start. So I think it could be the one that really nails it. So I'm intrigued to see what they do with it.
Yeah, I forgot about that. It would be nice to try a driving game as well. It doesn't make me feel like I'm going to yak, but maybe that's just me with my life.
Yeah, that's just how it is.
Yeah. All right, next on my list, I've got Ni no Kuni 2.
Okay, this was in the pre-show.
Okay, this is the overall Sony... yeah, whatever, I can't even think of the right thing to say. Ni no Kuni 2, so I never played the original. I know it's a very revered... JRPG from Level 5, and it's certainly a gorgeous trailer, but didn't really show anything in terms of gameplay. But I imagine it's going to be a fairly familiar style of game for people who know that genre.
Yeah, I mean, JRPGs at this point, the genre tropes are very, very clearly defined. The gameplay is clearly defined, and then it all becomes a case of what twist on the gameplay are you going to add to the formula. And if you get it right, you've got a great one, and if you get it wrong, you've got a bad one. And Ni no Kuni apparently did it amazingly. And the new one do you know what I do like about it? The fact that it doesn't look like it's just a straightforward sequel. They're doing the Final Fantasy thing, and it is just like a different setup. I've always found that is the better way to go. But then I never finished the first one, so I mean, maybe there's loads of stuff in it that I'm missing out on. Looks amazing, probably good.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I'm not going to have the time or energy or disposition to play it, but it certainly looks admirable.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a bunch of smaller games that may or may not have been on the pre-show that I'm going to try and pick out on my list now, so we can try and get back to the big guns.
Okay.
A VR game called No Heroes Allowed. Was that pre-show or main show?
That must have been pre-show because I have not heard of that. And there was a substantial VR section. So
okay, it's basically like a sort of god / RTS game where you're stood over like a big board, almost like, you know, when you generals push little toy soldiers around maps coming out with strategy, but kind of like a fantasy version of that. And there was a character called Badman, but he doesn't sound like he's from central London.
That sounds good.
Yeah, he sounded a bit like Hugh Laurie. It looked okay. It kind of had that Fable-y style graphics to it. I mean, it looked alright. Did you hear about That's You?
No.
The PlayLink game.
I heard about PlayLink at all. No, they didn't talk about it in the conference, but PlayLink was apparently one of the major things in the pre-conference. I know what PlayLink is, but I didn't see any of the games. Yeah,
so for those who don't know what PlayLink is, it's basically, if you've played the Jackbox games, it's allowing you to connect your phone to the game experience, but the difference being here is going to be one person's actually controlling the game in a traditional sense, and other people around are using their phones to interact. So this game, That's You, it seemed to be just phones, and it basically just seemed to be a kind of anodyne version of Jackbox, with some quiz questions and stuff like that, with a lot of focus on taking photos with your phone, and those get put into the game as well. I'm sure it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean,
depending on price.
I think that people have now realised that, like, the Jackbox, like that, you know, if you ever find yourself playing games in a social setting regularly, like, you can't ignore that anymore. I think it came out with little fanfare. Maybe it wasn't because I was following it or anything like that, but it was just another icon in the shop for the longest time. And everything I heard about it was people saying, like, no, if you have mates coming around, this is legitimate. Like, and
definitely.
And yeah, it's sort of got to a point now where it doesn't surprise me that Sony, I mean, they've got a history of things like Buzz and stuff like that. It doesn't surprise me that Sony are kind of doing their own one, and full power to them. I think it's I mean, everyone has a phone, everyone wants to play multiplayer. It's a smart idea. We'll probably get it for the bar.
No doubt. So talking to the bar real quick, you should just give a shout out to where you work and what it is you do, just in case people don't know.
Yeah, man. I work for the Loading Bar venues in London. We've got 2 bars. We announced yesterday during our own E3 press conference that we're opening one in Brighton.
Oh wow, fantastic!
Yeah, that was announced yesterday. I basically run events for them, make sure cool stuff happens, and it's been fun.
So if you've not been to these bars, make sure you go to them. There's Dalston. Where's the
other one's in Stratford.
That's right.
Yeah.
So gaming venues, you need to hit him up. Hit up Andi Hero with an I on Twitter. I'm sure everybody knows who he is already, but just in case you don't. Okay, moving on then. A game, I don't know if you've seen this, I literally just uploaded the trailer to this game on my channel, which is not something I ever thought I'd do. It's a little bit dirty, but I just thought this is the most interesting game that I've seen at E3, and I want people to see this fucking trailer, so I might as well get some views off the back of it. It's a little bit dirty, but whatever. I'm not the worst. It's called Hidden Agenda. Have you seen this?
No. Okay.
So this is from Supermassive. It's basically the sequel, the spiritual sequel to Until Dawn. It's nothing to do with Until Dawn.
Hidden Agenda?
Yeah.
Okay. That's really weird. I swear they showed a game called The Impatient, which is meant to be the spiritual sequel. How did this go by? Wow.
I think they've got a few.
Okay, carry on. I mean, this sounds amazing already.
Yeah, so this is like a sort of cop drama played out in an Until Dawn style, so multiple choice, all that sort of stuff with really cool visuals. But it's PlayLink, so you sit around with 4 mates, they get specific information on their phone that they're trying to influence the decisions of the game. So they might say like, okay, we need everyone to agree, but you're the only one on your phone that gets that. So it kind of has a real board game vibe while you're playing through this thing. So to me, you watched the trailer, honestly. I'm
watching it silent now. This looks amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, how is this not on the conference? This is the coolest thing. I mean, like, I don't know, it's not game of the show, but some amazing AAA stuff we've already seen. But like, in terms of something that's interesting and unique and we haven't seen before, so how could you not put this on the stage?
Yeah, this seemed... the more I'm finding out about what they showed with PlayLink, it seems like a missed opportunity that they didn't stick this in the main stage, or maybe just done a 2-hour conference that everyone was kind of expecting and stick all this stuff into.
Yeah, or let me fucking know there's a pre-show. So
it would have been nice to know. But this is, this sounds really good. Looks really good as well. Wow. Okay. That's kind of interesting.
So apparently you can play it on your own, but it's designed to be played with others. Unfortunately, I think the dream scenario would be something that's a bit more like randomly generated and emergent, so you could replay it more like a board game. I think it is going to be more like a campaign. So perfect if you like live with housemates, I think, and you can batter through it like that. I'm probably going to see if when it comes out, just playing it through with the missus. But even so, what a cool idea from a studio that's already got a pedigree in doing games like this and doing them well.
It's very much their year this year, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a shitload of games coming out. All right, moving on from that, I'm all over the place now in terms of what's in the conference, what's not, up or down. I don't know what's up or down. So we've got Matterfall coming from Housemarque. Was that on the main conference?
It's not on the main conference.
God damn it. What are they doing?
I think this... Slowly but surely, we're realising what one of the main problems was with Sony's conference.
And it's basically, after I realised that I watched the sort of last half an hour of the conference, and then weirdly the stream that I was watching it was basically cut in the middle of the Shadow of the Colossus. So I went to go and find it on a different YouTube channel, and I saw these audio problems. So okay, I'll just go to PlayStation and literally E3 27 playlist and just watch them all in a row, which is what I did. So hence that's why we're doing it in this funny order. So have you seen the trailer?
I'm watching it at the minute. This looks like Contra.
It's Contra mixed with Resogun.
Good.
Mixed with like other house. It's all Housemarque games all together, but with Contra. It's out really soon.
Yeah.
It's out. They've got Nex Machina out at the end of this month. This is June, and then they've got Matterfall out in August. So they're two absolute smashers. It looks like.
Yeah, this looks really good.
Amazing studio. Yeah. So it looks cool. Check it out, Matterfall. I mean, I don't get it. Knack 2 was that on stage?
Nope.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So the only person in the whole world who's completed Knack is my son Elliot, who absolutely loved it, playing on easy mode. And he just liked the fact it was basically a combat game, which it looks like the second one's going to be as well. There's some platforming elements, but it is a sort of a combat game with a dodge that played on normal was way too hard and incredibly boring for most people. But I think he was mainly 4 years old when he played it. He'll be 6 when this one comes out. He loved it. Just it was way more palatable on easy mode, and I just think it's become a laughing stock, but this one did look a bit better. It did look like it had a bit more variety to it, but I'm not going to dwell on it. It's Knack 2, for God's sake.
Which you've got to buy.
Oh yeah, I'll be buying it. I don't have control over these purchases anymore. Yeah. Okay, moving on then. They showed a bit of everybody's golf as well on one of these trailers. I don't know if that was on stage, but there was nothing. It was just the beta's already been out there. Yeah. And then I think this one was from Supermassive again. Is Bravo Team, the PlayStation VR game?
Yeah, so this was shown on stage, and this was part of a very surprising PSVR section. So I've got a PSVR. I have full-blown buyer's remorse. I've tried to sell it.
Same.
I've tried to sell it twice. Failed both times, and feel like I'm a bit stuck with it at the minute. I'm not saying they have completely pulled out of the nosedive, but we did a quiz for the bar, and one of the questions was predict how many games, PSVR games, Sony will show on stage, and the very highest I would allow was 5. and they actually showed, I think, 5+ PSVR games in total, and and it was all in one run. They basically had like a PSVR section, and this one was kind of in the middle of it, and they didn't. All they showed was it was a shooting game in VR.
Yeah.
But it does look like a bit of chat's come out of it. That it's multiplayer. Seems like it's a competitive multiplayer game in VR.
Oh, okay.
So, kind of feeling that a bit. That could be quite cool. I'd certainly like to try that kind of game, where the person who's trying to sneak up behind you and shoot you is another player. And I played all of Resident Evil 7 in VR, and like with a bit of tweaking, got around the motion sickness thing pretty hardcore. So I'm like since playing Resi 7, like the doors for VR have been booted open for me. I'm pretty confident in it now. I'm like, all right, bring it on. I want full game experiences. Let's do this. So I think this looked all right. They didn't show enough to really make a comment on it, but I'm hoping they show more of this.
So I think I've got all 5 of these VR games written down. So there's also The Inpatient, which you mentioned before.
Yeah, this is apparently the prequel to Until Dawn.
Okay, but in VR,
fully in VR. Look, they didn't show much, but looks pretty creepy.
Yeah,
kind of looks.
I'm up for it.
The game that you played early on your YouTube channel, the VR one that's very psychological. Here They Lie?
Yeah, Here They Lie.
You know how like you've got all the bits where like weird stuff's happening and the walls are breaking away and stuff like that. It looks like it's got a touch of that, maybe a touch of the Evil Within's about it.
I like all that shit.
Yeah, but are you going to like that shit when it's like there?
Oh, it'd be horrendous. I mean, the reason I stopped playing Resi 7 in VR was not because of motion sickness, even though I had a little bit of it when I put it on full controls. It's because I decided after about 8 hours, no, probably 6 hours, I just didn't want to do that anymore because it was just too stressful. I thought it was amazing, but I just found it a bit too stressful to do it like that. And the rest, to be fair, the second half of the game I didn't enjoy anywhere near as much. So I should have stuck it out, really.
Yeah, because in VR it was a refreshing change of pace.
Yeah.
But
I bet.
Yeah, so it's set 60 years before the first game. It's in a sanitarium, and it looks like it still has the psychiatrist talking to you between levels and stuff like that. Looks pretty cool. VR's obviously hell of a home for horror, and those guys have already put out Rush of Blood, which is like secretly one of the best VR games today.
Definitely.
And without going off on a massive tangent, why am I not seeing like Virtua Cop, Time Crisis, House of the Dead in VR? Like,
just give me
hook us up. So I think this could be quite cool. Only thing I'm slightly worried about is it going to be something that you walk around yourself and it's kind of like an adventure game, or is it going to be an experience thing on rails like Rush of Blood? I think after playing Resident Evil 7 I would be quite up for a maybe slower paced horror experience, especially by the Until Dawn people.
I'd be definitely up for that, absolutely. Next on the VR list was Skyrim VR.
Yes.
So, cool.
Yes, I can't wait. I am going to climb up the throat of the world, shout Fuss Road Dart, and throw myself into the abyss. I can't. Nice. Do you know what? I'm actually really excited about this because I've got a PlayStation. I've got a 350 quid bit of plastic with no games on it, and I'm the last bastion of people who still like Skyrim, regardless of how many platforms it's on and regardless of how many times I've played it. It's one of my podcast games. It's a game that I sort of stick on when I don't really want to do anything else. It's one of the reasons why I'm really looking forward to the Switch version as well. But I know those places quite well.
Yeah.
And I thought at first, is this going to be like the Doom one and just be a kind of like bits of Skyrim mini-game collection or a separate experience? But no, you go to Bethesda's website, it is the full game plus all 4 expansion packs. With optional move controls if you want. I'm kind of up for this just to go on a virtual tourist trip of my favourite places.
Yeah. I mean, that's the type of game that you want in VR. Really, again, it's not too fast, but it is. You couldn't get a more full experience really than Skyrim. And like you, I'm also massively up for the Switch version because I actually jumped off. Skyrim came out in the same year as my first kid was born,
right.
And when he was about So I guess when it came out, he was about 4 or 5 months old, and I used to play it while he sort of slept on the floor, and he'd wake up and I'd do like parent shit. And I have very fond memories of playing about 45 hours of Skyrim, and then I just had to review a bunch of other stuff because I was doing a magazine at the time where I was reviewing everything, and never got back to it, just because if you leave a game like that for too long, trying to go back, you haven't got a clue what you're doing, where any of the quests are. And I've always wanted to go back, and I downloaded it on PC and never got around to it. And then I was like, I'm getting that Switch version. And then they do the VR version, and I'm like, damn, which one am I going to do? So I don't know, but maybe both.
Yeah, I'm hoping this kicks the door open for Fallout as well. That'd be quite nice. I didn't really get on with Fallout 4, but at this point, any quote-unquote full game VR experiences I'm really open to. But yeah, I'm going to get both. I'm going to get the Switch and this one, because the Switch is my excuse to revisit the game, and the VR one is my excuse to visit the game, if that makes any sense.
that does make sense. Yeah, it's like the VR one's your excuse to visit Skyrim, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going to sit in one of the pubs. That's it.
In your bar.
Yeah.
Full double immersion. Right, we've got Star Child VR?
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
looked a bit Metroid-y.
That's right. It looks like that's the one. I was like, why is this a VR game? Because it looked like a 2D platform game. But yeah, cool. Yeah, interesting.
I'll be honest. I'm with you on that. It didn't look like it needed to be VR. Maybe it's a game that has VR support rather than it. But yeah, all right. It looked like a good game. So
then Moss, which seemed to be like a combination of sort of Fievel or something like that, and like reverse Last Guardian, where you're the Guardian.
Yeah, I think this could be the sleeper. I think this could be the sleeper out of the VR stuff they showed.
Yeah,
it's an interesting concept. The mouse is like super well animated. Yeah, and it's got a real style to it, which you kind of need if you're making a PSVR game, because otherwise you look rubbish.
Definitely.
So I think this one might be the sleeper pick of the bunch. I'm obviously full in the Skyrim camp, but being a bit more, looking at it a bit more critically, I think this could be the more interesting game, for sure. It looks really nice though. I think this looks really cool. Yeah, you play as a big dude who looks after a mouse with a gauntlet, by the looks of them. Looks pretty cool.
Yeah, and like you say, I'm glad that they took to the stage with VR, and they've shown some support for it. It's obviously not going to be necessarily the future of PlayStation 4, but the fact they've not just let it out completely to die is at least, well, yeah, like you say, I never get buyer's remorse for gaming stuff.
No, exactly.
It's been sitting there hanging on my speaker as it does, and I barely put the thing on I played Farpoint a bit, but it made me sick. So
yeah, I've not even played that. It's like it's a full on, like, I can't be asked to set it up. That's how far we've gone. But
I thought Farpoint was actually pretty bad, but other people liked it. But anyway, yeah, moving on. Okay, so that was all the VR stuff. Next on my list is where I joined the conference, and it was the Shadow of the Colossus remake, I guess, which it certainly looked the part.
Yeah, split opinion, this one.
Really?
Yeah, so the only issue I would say that Shadow of the Colossus had that really needed to be sorted out was the frame rate, and that's because the PS2 had no right to be running that game, to be honest. No, I didn't really get on with the HD remake on the PS4 because it kind of felt like it looked like they just whacked the textures on over the top of it, and I felt it looked a bit ugly. This game clearly looks better and is almost a complete remake. It is by Bluepoint, who are like the remake the HD masters. So I mean, it's in safe hands. But the visual upgrade has split opinion a bit. I've seen a few people on Twitter saying it looks a bit like when you go on Kotaku and there's someone saying someone's made Ocarina of Time in Unreal 4, and you look at it and go, yeah, there's just something missing. So I've seen a few people saying that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if they fix the camera and the frame rate and it runs on my PS4, there's no reason for me not to play one of my favourite games of all time again. Yeah. So I'm kind of into it.
Yeah, I thought it looked great. I've always been keen to revisit it. I did, like you, tried the HD remaster, but maybe did like one Colossus. Yeah, Colossus. Yeah. But yeah, never did the whole thing again. So I'd be keen to jump back on. But although, as much as I love that game, did make me incredibly angry at the time, just through the controls and constantly falling off. So,
yeah. Well, we'll see about that, won't we? I mean, it depends how much work they've done on it, but they have got previous for putting out games with bad cameras and bad controls. So
they very much do, very much do. All right, I don't know if this one was on stage. Actually, I stuck this on the list. The Strange Brigade.
It was shown very briefly, I think, in a sizzle reel.
Okay, so this is the.
But I saw a lot of this before E3.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a bit of it before E3.
It's from Rebellion, 4-player. Seemingly, I couldn't work out whether it was going to be like more of a horde shooter or a 4-player co-op style Uncharted style adventure with different classes.
Yeah.
It wasn't really clear from the sizzle reel. I don't know if you've seen more, like you said.
Yeah, it looks somewhere between the two. It's got a nice setting. It's kind of like sort of turn of the century, last century now.
Yeah.
Sort of, pre-World War One sort of explorers.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of early Indiana Jones sort of thing.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
It looks like it could be fun. It's by the Sniper Elite people. But you remember that they also did the zombie Sniper Elite one, which was just silly. And it looks like it's leaning more on that side of things. Like there's, for every random bad dude you've got to shoot, there's like mummies and stuff. So could be cool. Bit unclear on what sort of game it is, though. Yeah, you're right.
Definitely.
I think it might be a bit of a sort of throwaway shooter. Like the horde mode thing, rather than anything narrative driven.
Yeah, I think that it could well be that. But good to see Rebellion still hanging on in there and flashing a little bit of that Sniper Elite cash around.
Yeah, man.
One of the old good guys at the British UK, the UK scene.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on then. We're getting there, Andy. It was a hell of a lot of games shown at this conference, but we are getting there. One that I know is something that you will know a lot about is definitely in your wheelhouse is Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which they showed a little bit of, and I actually played today.
It's the reason
I saw online. It said that you played it at 4:20 this morning, which is quite good going. But yeah, I rattled through that story mode demo and did a very, very quick video, which is up on the channel as well.
Okay.
I thought it was kind of cool. I didn't know there was going to be a story mode. I liked what I saw of it. It seemed to have that fun fan service thing going on that Injustice 2 did, and mechanically it felt less hectic than 3. 3 was too much for me.
It's significantly less hectic. It's designed around a pad, which is obviously heresy when to the hardcore, but. They simplified the controls they've actually added more buttons than Marvel 3 in terms of like actual attacks, but it's basically that you've got light punch, heavy punch, light kick, heavy kick, but they've trimmed a lot of the needless fat that a fighting game has, such as, without going into too much depth, everyone in Marvel has a way to launch someone into the air, right? Where you can continue your combo in the air. But although every character has loads of different ways to do this, there is like a standardized one, but everyone's standardized one was slightly different. So like Iron Man's would be like light punch, light kick, and then down and heavy punch, whereas Hagar's would just be heavy punch, neutral, same combo. Whereas now, sure, there are hundreds of different ways to launch someone in the air and start your big combos, but everyone has a universal launching combo, which is light punch, light kick, heavy kick, and then down and heavy punch. And that'll do, and that works with everyone. So that means if you're a beginner, you just need to know that, and because it starts with a light punch, it's a very good punish because it's your quickest button.
Sure.
So sure, over time you will learn all these different ways, but as long as you know that little thing, and it's just round the pad as well. Square, X, circle, down, and triangle. You're in. That is the core. That's the key to open your first big combo, and then the ability to be able to tag people in whenever you want, rather than at specific points, is going to cause some trickery. And even in the demo already, I've started seeing some. I've figured out some really devious stuff. It's quite a substantial demo that they.
I was surprised. I was standing there. Yeah,
worth noting, they threw a demo up. Probably should mention that they put a demo out at the end of the trailer, which is quite cool.
Yeah, so halfway through playing the demo, I needed a piss, and I was like, "This is going to be finished soon, right?" And I was standing like bouncing around trying to get the thing finished. Obviously, you're meant to die at the end of the demo.
Yeah.
I assume.
You get bodied.
Took like one sliver of health off. But I liked it. Like I mentioned in the video where I talk about the game, I've been a fighting game fan forever. Street Fighter 2 is my all-time favourite game, but I've never been the guy that's talking about it in depth or understanding it in depth, to be honest, as the stuff you were talking about. Even though some of that stuff I might just know through osmosis of playing like a billion hours of Tekken or a billion hours of Street Fighter. So I thought I'd talk about it from a slightly broader point of view in the other video. I really like just the feel of it, sort of the feel of the impacts was nice. Like there's a kind of crispness to the movement. Is the whole game 2-on-2 now, or is it still 3-on-3?
It's 2-on-2, and apparently that is because of the ability to tag in at any point. Cool. Their exact words: if you could do that with 3 people, it would break your head. So
that makes total sense.
But it's pretty cool, and there was a bit of chatter beforehand. I mean, obviously, I saw this game months ago, and they've simplified some of the inputs. So, like, Dante no longer has to do a Dragon Punch motion to do his motion. To do his Dragon Punch, it's basically like down and punch, which is sometimes with oversimplification. You sort of lose some of the rewarding aspects of these fighting games. So there's a fine line to be drawn. But I think they've backed it up with the ability to tag in whenever you want, because that is just complete freedom of like expression through the system there. That you can bring, you can tag in between your characters whenever you want. It was very specific in the previous games, and using that, I've already seen it used to extend combos, to trick someone, to open them up, and this is just fighting the computer. So it's pretty cool, and there's a good spread of characters available in the demo as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely keen. My little boy Elliot, who will be, like I said, 6 very soon, he's actually really getting into fighting games. He absolutely loves Injustice 2. Yeah, okay, you probably shouldn't be playing it because it's a bit violent. He's enjoyed a bit of Tekken. He can't quite get his head around the controls, which is strange because they're like really intuitive, aren't they? But it's funny how young minds work. And he likes a bit of Street Fighter, and he can't wait for ARMS as well. So I know he's going to love this, being a massive superhero fan, and the fact that it does allow you to button mash a bit.
There is actually a system in the game now where if you mash light punch repeatedly, if you just hit square over and over again, you will do a target combo. You will go hit on the ground, launch them into the air, hit in the air, and knock them back down.
Okay.
So that is in the game, and that is totally being put in the game because they know, because of the Marvel license, and because the Marvel license is way bigger than what it was when the last Marvel vs. Capcom game came out. There are going to be people buying it for the story mode, and they have no interest in ever going online and getting bodied by me. So why not give them the ability to do that? However, in the recent release King of the Fighters, they have that system, and it's in the game, and you can't turn it off.
Right.
And no one at a high level uses it, so it just seems pointless, and it doesn't really teach anyone how to play that otherwise very difficult fighting game. So Marvel's, they've made no bones about it. This isn't teaching you anything. You mash the button, a combo comes out. If you press 2 buttons together, you do one of your supers. Enjoy the light show. Yeah. Pause the game, went into the menus, you could turn it all off.
Okay, cool.
It's not even sort of saying like this is how we're going to teach you or ease you into the game. It is literally in there for people who just want to have a laugh. And I think that's great.
Yeah, I do as well. I mean, it doesn't offend.
Glad I can turn it off, but I'm glad it's there.
Yeah, totally. Okay, we're getting towards the back end of this now, massively. So, a couple of big games left, and the first one of which is Days Gone.
Yes, this was the third one, the mystery third one from earlier in the show.
Okay, so I've put this right at the end. Again, nothing about this demo really blew my socks off. It certainly looks very nice, and it has that like first-party Sony vibe to it where everything's quite serious and there's games as movies as games kind of thing going on, but it did feel like I've played this before. I've played The Last of Us, so I mean its vibe is very similar, but it didn't seem to have the same quality in terms of like acting and that side of it. And then as an open world game, he hid in a little bush, and I'm like, I don't want to hide in any more bushes in games. I've done that too much. That's why it's one of the things I didn't like about Horizon. It was cool when he blew up the door and all the zombies came in and took over the camp. Not the most sensible way of maybe rescuing your friend, going, well, it'll probably be fine if I just let all these zombies in. I'll probably be able to get him afterwards. But I'll play it, but
yeah, I'll play it. But I think the main thing that sat with me, and I think that this game was really indicative of where Sony are right now, and it seems very safe in terms of its setting and its style, and it's very much of their thing, as you just said. But also, like, I've not played Days Gone, obviously.
Yeah.
Not many people have. But I would be willing to say that I know exactly how that game plays.
I know exactly what you mean.
I know exactly what button does what. I probably know how the characters feel when they move. You know, there's like that sense of weight around some games. Like, there's nothing I see in that game that makes me go like, wow, that is completely blowing my socks off with what it's brought to the dance. It has brought a totally fine video game by the looks of things. And that's the thing, is we're at a point as well where, like, everyone says we're in a golden age right now, and they're right. Like, amazing games are coming out. Solid 10s are coming out all the time. Remember when we used to look on, like, pages to find out, like, what game's got 10 in edge?
Yeah.
Like, it's like everything now. Like, it's, you know, games are amazing. And because of that, it also means I feel that the bottom line has come up as well. Mm-hmm. Like, when was the last time you played an absolute stinker, like a rotten sub 5 out of 10?
Yeah.
Games are great.
I mean, it doesn't happen anymore.
So when I see something like this, it works one of two ways. I either look at it and go like, do I just accept this for what it is, a totally fine video game, or do I start looking at something like this with a much, much harsher critical eye because everything else is so good? And if I accept it as it is, it looks like a totally fine, solid 7. Nothing to get, you know, excited about. It will do nothing to upset you in its entire runtime, barring a likely inevitable forced stealth section, which I guarantee you is in that game. But if you actually do stack it up against everything else, I am like, Sony, you look like you're spending a lot of money on this, and the only place I see the spend is in the fact that it graphically looks astonishing.
Yeah. I mean, they may come out in the next 2 to 3 months and explain a series of very in-depth and innovative systems, and fantastic. But I'm on the same page as you. It feels like we've been here before. You know, we've been here many times, and as lavish as it is, it's hard to get too fired up about. Yeah,
I mean, sure, it might be amazing, but all it seems that it would be, even if it is amazing, is the best of its bunch.
Yeah.
Again, like, this game, as I felt, was sort of indicative of Sony's entire performance at E3 this year, but also this game was the one that made me have a sudden think about, because this was the third game in, so we'd gone Uncharted, Horizon, and this, and all that was going through my mind at this point was like, how good is Breath of the Wild?
Yeah. Yeah,
like I expected E3 this year to be loads of companies putting out games that were starting to crib from it, but I think that'll be next year now. Mm-hmm. I think that like they really were ahead of the curve in the open world stuff there. Like this game just made me go like, wow, like that game, especially seeing as it started life on the Wii U.
Yeah, I know.
It's mad, absolutely mad.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. Well, I've only got 2 left.
Okay.
So if I've missed any out, right. Yeah. Okay. If I've missed any out, then let me know. First of which is the return of Kratos, my boy, in God of War. I love this trailer because I am a sort of unashamed fanboy of God of War. I even like God of War Ascension, even though it's not actually that good. But even like the PSP ones. So yeah, I'm down day one. It looked amazing visually, unbelievable visually. I like the fact that it does seem to be carrying some of the essence of what God of War is, but also changed it quite a lot. We've got a different camera view. It seems to be a very different style of movement. I don't know whether we're going to see puzzles or anything like that, but bottom line, 5 minutes of unbelievable visuals, brutal violence, Kratos with a ridiculous voice. Like, I'm in all day, unashamedly. Like, basically the opposite of what we were saying before. I just contradict myself, but I will never apologise for my passion about dumb, angry shit.
Yeah, I mean, God of War has always been about the spectacle. Like, I mean, the first time you saw the the Hydra in God of War 1. People forget that was literally the best looking thing in games. Like that was mind blowing when that Hydra showed up, and it was massive. And same with God of War 3 when that first came out on the PS3 and you were climbing on the Titan, and it was like right, well that's the new benchmark for console stuff. Like people forget that God of War is, one of those games a bit like back in the day with the id Software shooters. It was a game that pushed things forward when you looked at it. Certainly looks like they've carried on that there. The only thing I'm a little bit wary of about it, and this pains me to say it, is I really like how God of War plays. I like having the dodge on the stick.
Yep.
And the fact that like it's all about this like wild combat, and that is clearly non-existent now. That's not the game it is. It's they've changed genre. It's a bit of a reboot here. But I do like what these guys have done. It's got a touch of the Dark Souls about it.
Definitely.
Which I suppose it's nothing new. Goes against everything we just said, but at least it's cribbing from somewhere that I like, rather than stuff that I don't like.
That's exactly it, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, exactly. Could be amazing. I saw some. I'm not sure if this is podcast and the place to talk about it, but I saw some rubbish this morning about people. It wasn't people, it was a person talking about how he was against the way that Kratos basically told his son to man up at one point, which means he seemingly missed the rest of the bit in the trailer where the son goes, the reason why I'm strong is because I'm not like you, Dad. And maybe also missed the point that the reason why Kratos is miserable is because of his anger. That's day one.
Mate.
That's day one.
Something on Twitter about someone talking about toxic masculinity.
Maybe it might have been something like that. Yeah. Basically, like if that's what you think about God of War, you've missed 3 games worth of very, very basic storytelling. Very basic storytelling. I can't. But that kind of feeds into what I like about it. Is I think that I kind of like how they're sort of trying to give Kratos a second start. I like the character. I kind of like that it was clear throughout all 3 games that the reason why everything is crap for him is literally because of him. His family carked it first time round, but he's got his little boy now.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic goes. They showed footage where you were clearly playing as his kid. Mm-hmm. I'm putting out there now. One of them's dying. But who will it be?
Someone's dying. Yeah.
Who will it be? But yeah, I'm into God of War for the spectacle, and I just hope that the new combat holds up.
Yeah, likewise. I'm absolutely keen. I do feel like you mentioned those people, this one person who was talking about that stuff. I feel like sometimes these people are just waiting, like Rafa Nadal or Andy Murray at the baseline, waiting for a serve to come in. And the second they get, I could jump on this, I'm going to jump on this and be outraged by this, and they've not thought about anything through. And if you do it enough times, you will eventually be right about something. But the 9 out of 10 times you're wrong just causes a complete destruction of interesting discourse and debate about anything. There is stuff to be said about the God of War games in the past, some massive missteps that are in those games, amongst stuff which is really good and some really cool sort of action storytelling, unquestionably.
It's almost like they don't want them to do well. Mm-hmm. Like they don't want them to get it right.
Yeah.
Let them try.
Right. They're waiting for it. That's what they feed off, and it's just right or wrong. It doesn't really contribute anything, and it's just to the sort of detriment of gaming as a whole. But anyway, I am pumped for the game. Early 2018, I think they said. So again, there's not much coming out on PlayStation at the end of this year. So that felt like the other thing. They didn't want to highlight that too much, perhaps with the neighbours bringing out a console, so they're just like, let's get through this year, let's just keep on what we're doing, and we'll come hard again next year. I don't know.
I might be right.
And then they finished off with an unusual choice, but certainly a spectacular demo in Spider-Man. Now, I've wanted a great Spider-Man game my whole life. Spider-Man was my favourite as a kid. My favourite hero, like before even parkour existed and stuff like that. I was just fascinated by the character that could move like that, and I played all the games on the Game Boy and the SNES and all that stuff as a kid. And then obviously, like any sensible person, loved Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 2, and has never really managed to recapture that. And then recently the games have been terrible. This demo looked the part. definitely, and seemed to be... First I was like, okay, well they've just made an Arkham game with Spider-Man, and then it was like, okay, well they've just made a sort of Uncharted game with Spider-Man where you're just doing QTEs. I'm like, as good as this looks, I'm not interested in waiting for the right time to press triangle. I've done that, that's old. But then there was a decent sequence where you're moving through, admittedly in a kind of scripted chase, but you're moving through the open New York, which looked amazing, and it did seem to be a highlight of like the rock solid fundamental mechanics of what this game's going to be when you're just moving moment to moment and not in one of these scripted sequences. So I'm hopeful that most of the game will be open and have this amazing movement and have this sort of fluidity between inside and outside, and like a real amazingly animated and capable Spider-Man. And if all the other stuff, the QTEs and the Uncharted stuff, is on top of that, then business as far as I'm concerned. Finally Spider-Man's getting the justice he deserves in video game form. If however it's QTE the game, then worrying. But considering the last open world game was Sunset Overdrive, and that was a game sort of built around a very clever and enjoyable movement system, I'm confident that even though there are some red flags in this demo, that the final product will deliver finally on what a Spider-Man game should be.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I mean, if I want to put a negative stance on it, much like everything else they've shown in this, very safe bet, taking the tried and tested Arkham combat system, which to be honest, I expected more people to have ripped off by now. Like, that's good. So taking the Arkham stealth, the Arkham combat, clearly almost directly from those games, and putting it into Spider-Man, it's a good fit. It would almost be like dumb to almost tell them to do otherwise. You know what I mean? Like, it's, if you were to make a Spider-Man game, that's what you should have. The cutscene stuff, I mean, it looked amazing. It demoed very well in terms of it visually, but my God, there was at least 5 minutes of this quite long demo where you barely looked like you played it, which is never good. But as you said, that very short bit where he's swinging around the city again, it was a chase sequence. But did you play the really bad Spider-Man game on the PS4?
Which one?
It was Spider-Man 2, the Amazing Spider-Man 2 on the PS4. It was like really early game.
That one. I haven't played a Spidey for a while.
I finished it.
I know which one you mean, actually, sorry.
Yeah, I finished it. It's genuinely dreadful. However, even in this bad, below average video game, the bit where you just, between missions, get a swing around the city, that still has something. Like, that's still quite good. It was clunky because it wasn't a great game, but the feeling of just whipping around the city is very different to other superhero games. So yeah, I'm with you on that. That like, that is hopefully where they do the business, is that the swinging around is really, really good. And if it is a full open world with plenty of stuff that isn't scripted missions to do within a well realized, well animated, good combat, and the swinging around Spider-Man game, I think it could be alright. Because let's be honest, the best stuff in Grand Theft Auto never happens in the missions. But the missions are obviously the bit with the most time and care put into them, because they're super scripted, and there's some great set pieces, but that's all they are. They're set pieces. Once you've seen them you've seen them a million times. If they can, maybe capture a bit of that GTA thing, that sure, the scripted missions, they are what they are. They're fun. They're dumb fun. The dumbest of fun. But if there is something to be said about the open world and maybe some cool stuff can happen, then, I'm into Spider-Man. I'll take it. And it would be bad to say, oh, well, the combat looks rubbish. Well, it doesn't, because you've played an Arkham game. It looks the same. It's a bit underwhelming, but certainly isn't bad. It's like what I've said. Sony played it safe this year.
So yeah, I mean that's pretty much sort of summing it up. A series of safe trailers in an okay conference, but not the main event like we've seen in the past. So yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Thank you very much for joining me, Andy. It's been great to chat through the game. Where can people find you outside of the loading bar?
I do everything on Twitter. It's ANDIHERO, Andy Hero on Twitter. It's where I do everything. I put everything I do up there. I'm well into Twitter. Follow me on there. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, and also follow me, Jon Denton, on Twitter as well. So thank you very much for watching and listening to this breakdown of the E3 2017 Sony conference. Remember to subscribe to this channel if you want to watch a YouTube channel that celebrates the beauty and art of video games, as well as tries to recapture the spirit of games magazines. And I will catch you on the next one. Peace!